Hello, everyone, and welcome to OLC Live, a weekly broadcast on blockchain, branded tokens, and token economies. We feature weekly guests to discuss the latest in blockchain and the current projects that they are working on. And with us today, we have Mick Hagen. He is the CEO of Mainframe, a platform working on building decentralized applications. Mick, welcome to OLC Live.
Thanks for having me, Jose. I'm excited to be on. Jason's a good friend, and I'm a big fan of simple tokens. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, excited to have you on as well. We have some stuff to cover on Mainframe. You guys have been working on some exciting stuff as well. But before we jump into decentralized applications and decentralized messaging, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and your entrepreneurial roots?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I mean, even in high school, I built a silly little website that connected high school students. Well, students from my high school with students from neighboring high schools because I wanted to meet more girls. And so it was just a total hack to meet new people. And it was the first time actually businesses started approaching me saying, "Hey, could we advertise on your website?" And I had no idea how to charge for advertising. I was a high school kid. I was like, "Sure, give me $50 and I'll put your banner on our website." But I built my first website. I think I was in 7th or 8th grade. It was on a platform called GeoCities. Some people probably don't even remember, but it was called Mick's Pimpological Biosphere. And I have no idea why I called it that, but it was a place where I had breakdancing instructions and cheat codes and useless facts and stick figure deaths and all sorts of just random stuff that a 7th or 8th grader would like. And so I've always built things online. I've loved to just tinker and experiment. And I went to Princeton University, and after my freshman year, I dropped out and I started a company in the education space. It was a website that helped connect high school students with university admissions officers. So you can kind of think of it like LinkedIn, where high school students could create rich, profiles about themselves, and then universities and the admissions officers could communicate and recruit and connect with high school students all over the world. And our slogan was, "I am more than a test score." We wanted to give students all over the world really an opportunity to shine, to showcase who they were, what they were all about. Anyway, we worked on that for about 6 years, raised venture capital, 10 million revenue run rate, and then we were acquired by a public company in the US. Their name is Chegg. So that was a great entrepreneurial experience. I learned so much. I was super young, but learned so much about startups. And then I started another company called Undrip. And the main motivation there is I wanted to learn mobile development. This was around a time where iPhone was getting big, and I knew a lot of web development. I wanted to learn mobile. And the main idea was to connect, a user could connect their social media like Twitter or Facebook, and then we would use algorithms to surface the most interesting content. And it was a super hard business. Social media, you needed scale to get advertising. It wasn't a very sustainable business. And we raised a little bit of venture capital for that. Then we ended up pivoting. And as we started to think about what we wanted to pivot into, we started to think about what's a big, ambitious idea. Social media was not something that we wanted to be working on the rest of our lives. And so we started to think, what could we do that would be big? And the idea that we came up with was, let's try to build better email. Let's try to build a better decentralized communication protocol. And so we set off to do that. And IMAP and SMTP are the current protocols that power email. And we just thought email was broken. It's an unstructured database that anybody can put anything into. It's not extensible. It doesn't integrate or connect easily with other applications like your CRM or your calendar or your task management. And so we set off to build a better decentralized protocol. And during that process, we realized that a lot of people just didn't have motivation to make it decentralized. They didn't have incentives to run this decentralized network. And I invested in Bitcoin in 2013. And so I was kind of familiar with blockchain technology. Mostly at that time, it was just a speculative investment, like, oh, let's see what happens. I had my account on Coinbase. I had made a little bit of money from the first company acquisition, and I just invested in a little. But I was a mentor at a tech accelerator called Techstars. And there was a company that was going through the accelerator called Aid Tech. And they were using blockchain technology to help solve the double spend problem or fraud problems at refugee camps. And it was the first time in my life I got to see blockchain technology being used for something other than just speculation with Bitcoin. And it started to really open my eyes to what this technology could do, and started to learn more about it. And that's when we started to specifically think more and explore more. Could blockchain technology be used as a way to help with the incentivization problem that we were having? Because we were working with a lot of businesses and enterprises, and a lot of them would say, well, Mainframe, you built this cool protocol, why don't you host it? And so even though we had spent all this time building a decentralized protocol, in practice, it was centralized because they wanted us to host it. And so really exploring blockchain technology was a way to try to make this new network, this new protocol, more decentralized. And that sent us down this rabbit hole of like, wow, this is incredible. Blockchain technology is incredible. You can create incentivization structures so that people all over the world can be participating in a trustless way. Early participants can be incentivized through kind of token economics to keep networks running, even when there's not a lot of utility. And it was just incredible. And so fast forward to where we are today, we've evolved to be more than just a messaging protocol. I think messaging is one great use case that our protocol and our network can be used for. But really, we're building a platform that developers can build decentralized applications on, and messaging is only one of the kind of service layers, one of the pieces of functionality that our platform offers. But that was a very long-winded explanation to like my entrepreneurial journey. But I love startups. I love creating things. I love making things out of nothing. I love challenges. And so, I love entrepreneurs. I love startups. And that's a little bit of my entrepreneurial journey.
Great. And it seems like you have a trend of connecting two forms of people. Early on, it was educators with students, and now it's connecting two individuals with the messaging platform. But the early roots of Mainframe was decentralized messaging. I forgot what the name was before Mainframe.
We had it. Yeah, exactly. The early roots were trying to replace email, focused on communication protocols, messaging protocols. But what we realized as we built this new decentralized protocol was that it's data that's, data bits moving around this network, and that it can be leveraged for so much more than just messaging, right? It could be leveraged for, a new file storage solution. It could be leveraged for a new social network. Various services could be built on our platform. And so we realized that messaging is just one use case. Why not allow developers to do things beyond messaging?
So what exactly is Mainframe, and who is it for? So it's a protocol for building decentralized applications. Who can build a decentralized application on Mainframe, and how does it compare from using a different platform?
Yeah, so if you think of kind of the traditional web and the types of the types of functionality that you would need to build an application, you have things like identity, authentication, computation, storage, payments, communication, et cetera. You've got a lot of different things that you need to build a web app, just a normal web app. Now, a lot of these things have great libraries, have great services, have great infrastructure around to make it really easy to leverage these things to build web apps very quickly, very easily. In Web3, in kind of this new decentralized web, it doesn't exist. It's incredibly hard. There are, and this is similar to how it was in the early web, right? When in the mid 90s, as we were starting to build web pages, there weren't a lot of tools, there weren't a lot of frameworks or libraries. To build even just the simplest of interactions on a web page, you had to do this thing. You had to build a CGI script, which was low-level programming just to have the simplest of interactions. And so we're kind of in the same place for Web3, meaning it's very complex. It's very hard to build these decentralized applications because there just aren't as many tools, frameworks, libraries to leverage. And a lot of these, service layers like computation or file storage or identity, a lot of these technologies are still in their infancy, right? A lot of them aren't yet fully decentralized. They don't have incentivization yet. Now, there's a lot of incredible projects that are actively working on these things, but it's still very early. So long story short, to build a decentralized application, it's incredibly hard. It's incredibly complex. And Mainframe essentially is making it easier. A single SDK, single API, so that if you're a developer, and when I say developer, you might be just like a one-off developer, or you could be an enterprise, you could be a company who's trying to leverage decentralized technology to build an application. And so we make it much easier to build decentralized applications. We have functionality like computation, file storage, data services, identity, payments, communication, so that if you're a developer and you're building this application, you could just connect with a single SDK, great documentation, great tutorials, single API, and we deal with all of the changing, updating, evolving technologies under the hood, because it is still moving very quickly. People are experimenting with different things. You got to deal with different tokens. There's a lot of complexity under the hood, and we abstract that away from the developer who's building the application.
Great. So you're building the resources and making it simpler for developers to build decentralized applications. But I want to get into why somebody would want to build a decentralized application. Sort of that to overcome that challenge, as you said, as the businesses wanted you guys to host the messaging platform. So let's talk a little bit about decentralization. What are some of the current issues with Web 2 today that Web 3 solves?
Yeah, so messaging is a good use case because we have a lot of experience in messaging. We've built messaging apps and we know the space. So messaging alone, in a lot of countries, countries can simply just ban apps, right? Russia banned Telegram. There was a time where Brazil banned WhatsApp. In a lot of Middle Eastern countries, Signal is which is today a lot of people would consider one of the more secure and private communication tools, banned. In China, the Chinese government essentially has full access to WeChat. WeChat is kind of the main communication app in China, and the government has full access. There was a journalist who was renewing her visa, and the visa officer basically started asking her about a party that she had put on with a bunch of other journalists. And she tweeted about this experience, and she was just shocked that the visa immigration officer knew about this party, because it was a private WeChat group that she had invited a bunch of her journalist friends and ran this private party. And she was just shocked how easy and how accessible this information was to the immigration officer as she was renewing the visa. And so there's a lot of cases where, privacy is completely compromised, or in many places and in many countries, freedom is compromised. The ability for people to communicate and connect freely with whom they want, where they want, with what types of applications they want, it's a very big deal. And so the reason why decentralization matters and is important for a lot of use cases, and especially use cases like I'm giving around messaging, is it allows people to have more freedom, right? It allows people to have more privacy. It allows people to have more security, because when you know that you're being watched, and you know that even though you might not have anything to hide, and this is kind of the argument that a lot of people make, well, if you have nothing to hide, what's wrong if the government can see everything that you're doing? Well, the problem is that we behave differently when we know people are watching us. It might not be bad different, it's just different. When we know somebody's always watching us, we just behave differently, and that's not freedom, right? That feels like slavery. And not even to mention a lot of the big tech companies who have kind of a honeypot of information, and headline after headline, we see that a lot of these tech companies either are getting hacked, getting compromised, or they just don't have our best interest at heart, right? They're selling our data, they're using our data to manipulate us. When we're starting to realize that when we're not paying for the product, we are the product. And so I think there's just a general feeling that we need more control over our lives. We need more control over our data, more control over our identity. With decentralized technology, we can remove the middlemen, whether that be a big tech company, a big financial institution, or a big government. And we should be able to control our own destiny. And so decentralization allows a community of people to work together to run these services that we rely on every single day, without middlemen taking their big cut, or selling our data to the highest bidder, or spying on us, right? So at the heart of it, it's about freedom. It's giving people more power, more freedom, and that's why decentralization matters.
Great. So you have a mission to sort of overcome today's censorship and surveillance issues that we all know goes on, and even the large, it goes on all the time with the large corporations and all these hacks that we hear all the time.
Here's the thing. So here's the thing. Let me add to this. So that was just kind of the messaging use case, right? With messaging use case, it really is about kind of freedom of information, freedom of communication, ideas, etc. But what I'm most excited about, and what I just spent 2 weeks in Brazil and Argentina and Chile talking about it all at the various meetups, the mainframe meetups that we did, is I'm most excited about the economic freedom that Web3 will bring, right? This idea that people all over the world can participate in this global marketplace 24/7, free of corruption, jurisdictions, regulations, bureaucracy that oftentimes local governments stand in the way. The local governments will stand in the way with these types of things. That the economic opportunities are what motivate me the most, and that's what I'm most passionate about. So you can imagine, in some countries, developers like Iran, for example, you can't even access the app store, right? So a developer wouldn't even be able to deploy an app and have their business start earning income because of trade sanctions, because they don't have access to a global market. And there's so many other examples of this, and sometimes it's just actual access to like the app store, like in the case of Iran. But in many cases, it's just opportunity, right? I really believe brilliance and talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. And Web3 and the types of marketplaces that will emerge in Web3 will unlock incredible opportunity and access for people all over the world from an economic standpoint. So developers who are building new businesses, but also end users who are now able to participate in this global economy, potentially earn an income from the comfort of their homes, wherever that may be in the world. And so it's the economic freedom that I'm really excited about with the decentralized web.
Great, and that's that. I really think the Onyx, the decentralized messaging app, I want to stick to that as an example of how this works, because a lot of day-to-day consumers, they think about decentralized this, decentralized that. What does it really mean? So I wanted to take a moment to go back to the decentralized messaging app and sort of break down exactly how a decentralized app works and how it compares to something like a centralized messaging application, like any typical WhatsApp, WeChat.
Cool.
So
yeah, let's do that. So on an app like WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, essentially it's all stored in a single place. Now, of course, they might have distributed servers and whatnot, but it's essentially a centralized service. Facebook is in control of all the data that moves through that service. Now, the risk of that is a few things. One is it's a central point of failure, a single point of failure. So whether it be a government, whether it be a hacker, it could go down and the data inside could be compromised, right? Because it's all in one place. And when you have something that's decentralized, it's not all in one place. And you have essentially people all over the world who are deciding to lend or share their computational resources, their computer, for example, a server, to run. So for example, let's say they're running the mainframe network, they're running software. And instead of it being all controlled by a single centralized institution like Facebook, it's no longer controlled by any single institution. And it's kind of, the network is run by thousands or hundreds of thousands of people all over the world who are running the mainframe software. And so you can imagine, like, in a place like China, where perhaps they wouldn't like this type of messaging application to exist, they would have no way to stop it, because it would be like playing a game of whack-a-mole where they could shut one server down, but another one would pop up because it's fully decentralized and the traffic is encrypted, the data is encrypted. There's no way for them. I mean, they would essentially have to shut down the internet. And so the way that it works is, in the messaging example, let's just use, you've got, nodes that are running. And when somebody wants to send a message, essentially they have to pay in MFT. They have to, pay for the service to run. Now, it's going to be negligible. Hopefully it won't cost much to send a message, because we know that that would be a lot of friction and annoying to have to pay a lot. But the nodes who are on this network are paid to relay messages. So you can imagine nodes all around the world running mainframe, communication, and the nodes are incentivized and rewarded to relay messages, to deliver messages, to store messages. Maybe the recipient's not online, and so the node needs to store it and wait until they get back online. And so that would be an example. Those nodes are running because they're incentivized to run through MFT, through tokens. Now, they email is a good example of a decentralized protocol that doesn't have incentivization. And so what ends up happening is email is controlled by mostly just a few companies like Google or Microsoft or Apple and whatnot. But with incentivization, with this blockchain technology to create an incentivization layer, you can have people all over the world sharing their resources, sharing their server, sharing their computer, sharing their phone. And it creates a network that's censorship resistant, fully decentralized, surveillance resistant, and it's powerful. And people can connect and communicate in a way that's never been done before.
Great, and we have these innovative solutions that allow for this to happen. One of them is the interplanetary file system, and another one is Swarm. I believe you guys use Swarm, right, for file storage?
Yeah, exactly. Swarm is a great protocol, great technology, but we're planning on also incorporating IPFS as well, because some developers might prefer IPFS over Swarm, and so we'll give developers a few options on each of the service layers.
Yeah, we're still at a very early stage with both of these technologies, but
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
definitely a step forward towards a decentralized world.
Yeah. But here's the thing with decentralization, it's happening. It's coming, right? When we look at charts around trust and the lack of trust that people have in their governments and their financial institutions and media companies, like, people are starting to realize that they need and want more control. And then when you consider, so all of the trends are kind of working towards decentralization, the pendulum is swinging. But then when you consider how millennials think and how they act and how they behave, which by 2025 will be 75% of the entire workforce will be millennials. And already today, 50% of them are freelancers. So they work very differently. They behave in a way they want more flexibility. They want more independence. Many of them travel around as digital nomads in kind of the gig economy. And there was a recent survey that said 92% of them don't trust their financial institutions. So when you consider the declining trust more generally among populations, when you consider how millennials are behaving, how they work, Web3 is definitely coming. Decentralization is happening. It's not a question of if, but when.
Great. And next, considering a decentralized web, there's a lot of people often have debates whether blockchain is, the solution for everything. So I want to take your opinion. Do you believe blockchain is quote unquote the solution for a decentralized web?
Yeah, I think blockchain technology is a solution. It is one of the best ideas and one of the best technologies that we currently have as we think about decentralization. Now, I know there's a lot of interesting, DAGs and other kind of DLT technologies, which will be interesting to see how they emerge. This whole area, this whole field is one giant experiment, right? And there's a lot still that we need to try and test. There aren't a lot of really strong use cases in production environments that have millions of users yet. And I recognize that. I really think that we are in the early 90s if we were to compare it to the web. And there wasn't much then either. There was a lot of experimentation. There were the simple use cases. In the 90s, people thought that the web was going to be this amazing place that you could just read newspapers online. It was all about static content and hyperlinks. We had no idea that the web would become what it has become today. And I think for blockchain technology, it's similar. Our minds and the view of what we think it will do is very limited. It's very myopic. We're thinking of the reading newspaper online use cases, and I think completely new, innovative business models and use cases will emerge that we couldn't even think of before. So again, I don't subscribe to this idea that blockchain is the only technology that will get us there. Right now, I think it's the most interesting. It's the most mature in a world of a lot of immature projects, but no, I don't. I think there will be a lot of interesting technologies that emerge to help us push this decentralized web forward.
Great, that was a quite interesting metaphor there. And for all of you that are watching this, you guys are partaking in part of a very early stage, of this technology, almost like participating in the early stage of the
It's so
.com boom.
exciting, though. It's so exciting. It's forget the bear market, right? Forget all that. This is going to change the world, and I'm excited to be part of it.
So what do you think it will take for the world to transition from Web 2 to Web 3? Is this something do you believe will happen over the next 10 to 15 years? What will it take towards to make this happen?
Yeah, so I think it'll take a few things, right? I think it'll be, you know, we launched a video called Dawn of the Dapps, which really kind of showcases, you should link to it in the show notes. It showcases how terrible the user experience is for people who are kind of getting onboarded into crypto, for people who are starting to use, you know, decentralized applications, et cetera. It's very painful. So I think we need to solve a few things around usability. We need to make it easier for normal people, for people who don't know how to use MetaMask, for people who don't have to go sign up on Binance. We need to make it easier for them to kind of get onboarded into crypto, right? So tools and services around converting fiat into tokens that are very frictionless, that are very integrated into the product experiences will be good, will be helpful. I think we need to solve scalability in the sense of transaction speeds and throughput, right? Currently, to do transactions with crypto, it takes time. You know, Bitcoin can sometimes take 15, 20, 30 minutes just to see a transaction through. So in some cases, like if you're doing the decentralized Amazon, okay, who cares? It takes 30 minutes. But I can't go buy milk and wait 30 minutes at the grocery store, right? I want that to be like a second. I want to be able to pay, and it needs to be as fast as like Visa transactions. So I think there are a lot of use cases around commerce and exchange of value, especially in offline situations, that we need to solve speed, right? Scalability, throughput, et cetera. And there are a lot of interesting projects that are trying to solve this, but that'll be one thing that we need to solve. Another thing that we need to solve is a strong stable coin. You know, a lot of people considered Bitcoin as like the digital gold and kind of the store of value. But I wouldn't consider something that makes you lose 80% of your value a good store of value, right? Like that's not a great store of value. So we need good stable coins. And I think there are a lot of interesting projects that are working on this, you know, MakerDAO being one of the ones that I think is most interesting. Because if you have a good stable coin, one that actually preserves value, you'll see a lot more institutional capital and just a lot more capital come into this space. Putting it into Bitcoin is not a safe bet. It's too volatile. But having a good stable coin will go a long way in helping people enter more carefully into the whole ecosystem. So I think scalability around throughput, stable coins, usability, kind of onboarding into crypto from fiat, from money. And then kind of above all this is we need killer applications. We need applications that are only possible through decentralized technologies, things that couldn't exist in kind of the traditional web world. And I don't know all the answers to that. I think we're all still kind of experimenting and exploring what are the killer applications. But once we start seeing some killer applications that see mass adoption, that's when the floodgates really open up. But here's the thing. I think the ideal user experience is one where people have no idea that they're using blockchain technology. And this is where I think we start making some big progress, is people being able to interact with applications that are just as performant, that are just as slick, but offer new additional functionality than traditional Web 2 products, without them even knowing that they're using blockchain technology, with perhaps tokens being abstracted away, or perhaps it just feeling like credits. When we start building these types of applications, then we've made it. But I think it's going to be so entrenched in our everyday world, kind of like web and mobile. It's like, blockchain is just going to be this thing that's like, yeah, that's just part of our digital existence. It's not like it's not a thing. It's just it's part of our digital lives, like mobile and the internet.
Yeah, definitely. I often I now find myself asking, like when asking somebody, oh, when did you hear about blockchain? I kind of think about it and think about, am I asking in a way, when did you hear about the internet?
Yeah.
But so scalability, I think there's a lot of innovative solutions that people are working on. I think that's just a matter of when scalability is reached. And as far as pegged coins, you mean like fiat-based, fiat-pegged stablecoins?
Yeah, I mean, it could be a basket of kind of a basket of different, fiat currencies. I mean, I totally understand people's reticence with pegging something to fiat. I get it. But so maybe if it's kind of an index of different, the most stable fiat currencies that it's pegged to, or something like that. I mean, there needs to be I wish we could just get rid of fiat altogether, but the reality is, until we can pay our rent and buy groceries and pay employees in crypto, we need fiat. And so there's got to be some peg, there's got to be some, mapping between crypto and fiat. But hopefully there comes a world where we don't need fiat anymore, but we're just not quite there yet. We can't burn the bridge until we're ready to cross it.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely gonna be a future where it's a combination of cryptocurrency and fiat. It can't be all in one. It's like, having your life savings all in cryptocurrencies. I don't think that's a good idea yet, but maybe one day it'll be easy enough so the average consumer can manage their own assets.
Yeah.
But great, I've linked down Dawn of the Dapps. If any of you live viewers or anybody watching this after the live show want to check it out. I gotta say, it's a very well produced video. So where did the idea come from to create this?
There's so many ideas emerge from just a bunch of awesome, talented, creative, smart people getting in a room, hammering out ideas, throwing ideas against the wall, seeing what sticks, poking, picking, refining ideas. And I think that it's similar to many things that we've done in the past, whether it be the physical airdrops that we traveled all over the world doing, whether it be the DApp awards, whether it be various other videos that we've done. We've got an incredible team of people who are creative, who come up with big ideas. And sometimes the ideas that we come up with sound a little bit crazy and like, I don't know if we can pull it off, but we have a bias towards action. We just go after it. We shoot, then aim. We don't sit around thinking about, is this going to work? Is this not going to work? Let's just go. Let's just get after it. And so, we didn't hire an agency. This was all internal. The actors are employees, people on the team. But again, I think a lot of it just comes down to we have an incredibly smart, creative, talented people, top to bottom, from engineering to marketing to business to anywhere in between, product design. And you put a bunch of smart, talented, creative people together, and amazing stuff comes out.
Great, and you're also very well connected with your community. So where can the viewers? I'm sure we have a mix of viewers today, both from Mainframe and OST, and a couple of new ones. First of all, thank you all of you that are watching this live. Greatly appreciate all you've joined us today. So where can people or the viewers learn more about Mainframe?
So mainframe.com, mainframe. I mean, it's spelled just like the normal mainframe.com. And people sometimes wonder how we got that domain. And all I can say is it's a lot of persistence and hustle and making YouTube videos for the owner, trying to convince him to let us have it. But that's mainframe.com.
Great. And that's also linked down in the description below. Thanks again, everybody, for watching this live today. A recap of this episode will be posted on OST's Medium. And be sure to subscribe, hit that subscribe button on OST Live to our YouTube channel. We host weekly episodes. Next week, we're going to be talking about the Gorley testnet with Aiden Hyman from ChainSafe Systems. So be sure to tune in for that. Thanks again, everyone, for watching. And Mick, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.